Okay, so one thing, I just did this off camera, the drain screws. Most of you might know where this is already. Right at the bottom of the carburetor on both sides, there's a small screw. Go ahead and crack that loose, back it out. When you do, you can slip a hose on or just have this over a bucket and drain the carburetors out. When they're done draining, go ahead and tighten that screw back up. Do not over tighten these, you will crack the bowl. It's a tapered screw. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and pull one out here. It's a tapered screw like that. As you tighten that in, it will very easily expand out and crack the bowl. And then you will be looking on eBay for a carburetor bowl, and they will not be easy to find, and they will not be cheap. So go ahead and put it in. When you feel it bottom out, like you can just basically just like what would be finger tight, and then just a little snug. That's all you need. If there was fuel in there, you would actually see it quit leaking before it even bottomed out fully. Like they really seal quite well, so do not over tighten those. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is just remove these vent lines off the carburetor. So just give these a bit of a twist. Start on there. Go ahead and pull that out. Slide this out of its holder on that side. Go around to the other side. Another one's loose. And I'll just show you this is how this is oriented sitting on the carburetor. So that's how it goes back together. The next thing we'll do is fuel lines. Same idea. This one has clamps, so we have to remove the clamp. Give it a bit of a twist as you're pulling. That's that one. We'll go ahead and pop that out of the holder on this side. Spin it around. There's one more holder right here. That pops out. Come on, there we go. And now your fuel line is off. I just throw that on the ground because there can actually still be some fuel in there, so you don't want to spill it on your work area. Okay, so basically these are CV carburetors, so they're kind of vacuum actuated. You'll notice if I move the throttle valve turns, but these don't move. The bike has to be running. Another thing, if you're trying to work on these bikes, the whole air system has to be in place in order for these to work properly. The air box has to be sealed. Everything's got to be on. Otherwise, the vacuum doesn't pull evenly, and the carburetors just won't run. Coincidentally, while we're having a look, right at the bottom here, this is the screw that you use to synchronize the carburetors. I'll probably do that in a future video so that you can see what's going on there. At this point, we're going to go ahead and remove the bottom throttle plate. This carburetor you can get at, you can remove the bowl to get inside without removing this plate, but the other one, you can see it's in the way. You can't get at the two screws. So I'll show you a really easy way to get this apart. And let's go ahead and take a flat screwdriver. If you can just take a look right inside here, there's little C-clips on these guys. And we're just going to pop these off. Actually, I need a different screwdriver. Let's see if this one will do the trick. Let's hope. Okay, there's one. Make sure you don't lose these. I mean, they're replaceable, but you might even have some kicking around depending on your situation. So these are right at the top. Basically, these are the throttle actuating arms that come off the holder at the bottom. So a little bit tricky to get to, at least with this screwdriver anyways. There we go. Whoops, shot that one way over here, but there it is. So take those two, set them aside. Now these throttle arms, just pry in here, and it's going to pop right off that side. Same thing again on the other side. Those will pop right off of there. And those are all done for now. We'll go ahead and pull these 4 Phillips screws. There's 2 on this carburetor. That one was snug. set those aside. What I'll do, if you have a can of carb cleaner, just go ahead and pop the cap on that. You can actually throw your screws, your clips right inside. Just don't knock the lid off, and you got a perfect little dish to hold your things. Wow, those are snug. And pull the second one off. Screw away. We're going to go ahead and flip this over. Two more. There we go. Now, be careful at this point. The carburetors are still connected at the top. This will go ahead and just pull out of your way, and set that aside for now. If we turn the carburetors around, I'll let you just get a look. Just pay attention to where these are oriented. You can actually see the marks on the caps once you remove them. And as you put the vacuum and fuel hoses back into place, or excuse me, the PCV or ventilation hoses and the fuel hoses back into place, you'll see where they go. We'll go ahead and actually start by separating the two carburetors. So you don't want to put any pressure on these right now because they're just kind of lightly held into place. So just go ahead and crack the screws loose off of one side. There we go, and just kind of lay them down. We're going to set that aside. The next one, you're going to see the carburetors are moving apart from each other now. As I wiggle them as I pull that, and these will just disengage if you go. Oh, sorry, you know what? I missed one part that needs to be shown here, and that is just to pop this this choke lever out, and that's just by lightly prying right there, and that'll pop out. These carburetors, when they go together, this tab, those engage with each other there. So when they go together, they've got to fit together like so. Then you can put your screws into place. So just make sure that those aren't cockeyed like that. Okay, we'll go ahead and finish removing the bracket on this side. Setting these aside from each other. What I do is I just go ahead and just leave the screws right in the particular hole where they go, and that way I don't have to guess at it later. I just pick it up as it sits and put it back on the carburetor. So we've got the two carburetors apart from each other. You can always tell the front one from the back. So I say front and back. They're oriented left and right on the bike, but this one goes where the choke was on the one side, so you won't lose that one. This one, this is where that throttle locked into place on the other side. So you always know which carburetor you're working on as you're doing your work that you need. So we'll go ahead and crack loose the bottom bowls on here and have a look inside. Now I'm taking these apart to make a jet change. It is also a good idea to take these apart clean every once in a while. And there are a couple videos on YouTube that show how to do a basic cleaning. I'll maybe just touch on that a little bit as well, just to make sure that you have some info. Now, I've had these apart a couple of times already, doing various things, and I haven't had to replace the gasket on the bowl yet. It came apart very nicely the first time I took it apart, so the gasket seems like it's pretty durable. Slide back. Now the inside of this, I've cleaned these previously, so as you can see, they're in pretty good shape. Nothing really to worry about there as far as being dirty. That's the gasket we were talking about. I'm just going to go ahead and lift this out of place. There was loose before, and the reason that I remove it, because I know it's going to come off easy in this case, and I don't want to do any further damage to it, so I'll just pull it off, set it aside. So now you can see the float on top of there. This is your main jet. Pilot jet's down inside here. Needle and seat is back underneath the float there as well. So there are some more jets inside this deceleration enriching. I think they call that a decel enricher. There's a spring and stuff like that. Oh, the other thing I'm going to stress right now, do not use carb cleaner on this carburetor yet. There's a vacuum diaphragm in the top. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. If that carb cleaner touches that vacuum diaphragm, either there or there's also one inside the fuel enricher, they'll be destroyed pretty much on contact. That diaphragm is not cheap. You will have to search around on eBay. I think I checked a Yamaha the other day, and I'll show you the piece, and it was 360 bucks. Now that was Canadian, and Canadians always pay a premium for stuff, but I bet in the States this is probably still $250 to remove this. Just lift slightly on the bottom, you're going to see this slide out. Now it's this diaphragm right here. If you need to replace this piece, people, it is very expensive. Do not get carb cleaner on that. Also inspect this for cracks on the inside. If you see any cracking, it will need to be replaced. I know guys have taken black silicone before and just pushed the silicone into the crack, let it set up, and that seems to work. I wouldn't trust it though, not too terribly far, but if you can save yourself some money, you got nothing to lose by trying, I guess. The other thing we're going to do is just slip this the needle out here. So this is the main needle, and as we dump that out the back, there's one more piece, I think. Yeah, there should be. I'm going to go ahead and give this a tap. There we go. Now, one thing I'm going to show you that I learned on the Yamaha parts list. If you get an exploded carburetor view, go to Yamaha, Google search Yamaha parts, put it in the year of your bike. They're going to show you a parts diagram. Okay, so in the diagram, Yamaha shows you the clip at the top, we have that on, the needle, and then they show this small washer, and then this piece. Do not assemble that this way. This is wrong. This is the order they go in. Slip this bottom piece onto the washer. This goes on the top, and then that drops in there. And actually, the easiest way to do it, go ahead, put that on, drop this through, wiggle it, it drops down through into place. Then just drop this inside, and then have a look in there, and make sure that it drops flat. And what happens is this spring is that this is actually a spring seat for this spring to push on. And the reason I found that out is if you actually look this piece up later in the manual, they actually call it a spring seat. I had figured it out myself before that, but I put it together as they showed it here, and the bike just ran incredibly rich. It was terrible. I had to take it all apart. It was a little bit frustrating because I was just following what they showed in the picture, and that is incorrect. One other quick measurement I'm going to show you before we pull this apart is setting the float height. Now, if you look in the Yamaha service manual, you can find that online or maybe on eBay. They want you to hold the carburetor at an angle about like this, so that you'll see the float is against the seat, but it's not pushing down on it. They want it at the top of this sort of travel area right there. And then the measurement is from the deck of the carburetor where the gasket would sit to the top of the float, and you'll see that that is 23 millimeters on this one, which is right in spec. 23 to 25 millimeters is the spec that they're looking for there. So again, we want the float to sit against, but not putting pressure. If you push down, you'll see it push flat. So we want it sitting right there, and then go ahead, take that measurement. Whoops, I went ahead and pushed on it. Take that measurement just like so, and that's right where it is, and that's at 23 millimeters. Now we can go ahead and remove this pin. These are pretty tight. They kind of stake them into place a little bit. You might need to use something to give it a little bit of a tap, which I am going to do right now. This will be a little bit tricky. Get my trusty screwdriver hammer. switch up to the plier hammer here. There we go. So once that pulls through, just pull that pin out, set it aside, lift the float straight up. Whoops. And this little tang, if you need to make an adjustment, it's by bending that tang, and that just the needle itself just hooks right on top, like so. So if you need to make an adjustment, that's how you get it. But for now, we can set that aside. If these are hardened or anything like that, you may need to replace them. That needle and seat set, again, is not cheap, but there are carb rebuild kits available on eBay. This seems to have a bit of flex left in it. Oh yeah, it's quite soft actually, so we will go ahead and set that aside. I've had issues with the fuel getting past the needle and seat. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do, there's a Phillips screw there. We're going to go ahead and loosen that up. I might as well go ahead and actually just remove that one. I don't think that one's actually necessary to remove fully, but what the heck. We'll go ahead and pull that out of the way, and then we're going to take a pair of pliers, see if we can get in here and just give that a little twist. And basically that's going to remove the seat. Looks like this O-ring is a little bit smushed on this. I'm probably going to need to replace this one. You can see that the plastic's been pushed out. This is a little screen to prevent fuel particles. I'm just going to give that a blow. Any junk that's in the fuel will get on there. If you just get a small tool, you can just pop this right off. And it's very delicate, so we don't want to break that, and just set it aside for now. Then we can just inspect the inside of the seat itself and make sure everything else is in good shape. Alright, so anyways, we're going to go ahead and pull a main jet out of this guy. Now when you get the jet, take it out. There's a flat brass washer on top, just kind of dump that out. Set that aside for a moment, screw the jet back in just a couple of turns. Small task apparently. Okay, so once that's back in, and just push down on it, and what that did, inside the emulsion tube came loose. Just hold that with your finger, remove the jet, and then this should just fall down. If it sticks, you're going to have to just push it down gently. Now these are oriented a certain way. If you can see, there's a line in here that this has got to be lined up with. Give me just a moment here. I'm going to give this guy a little turn. Okay, so as you can see, that little cutout has got to be lined up so that this doesn't spin inside. So if you're going to remove the jet and you're finding it's taking a lot of force, then we'll go ahead and pull this out. You can see this area here, that needs to be lined up with there. You can hold this plastic piece with a pair of pliers, give it a bit of a squeeze, but right in this area. So it has to be right at the top. You'll be gripping this. Don't crack the plastic, but you can hold it firm enough that you can crack the jet loose, back it out without spinning this inside of there and doing any damage. So we'll go ahead now. This is called the emulsion tube. When you're cleaning, you want to blast through the inside. Make sure all of these little holes are clean. You can use a little piece of wire, a piece of guitar string, like the high E string off a guitar or something, works great for cleaning those out. The pilot, that was the main jet that we removed, the emulsion tube. This is the pilot jet, this guy right in front. And we'll go ahead and pull these out. When you're putting these jets back in, they don't have to be super tight, just snug them up. Make sure they don't fall out of place. Again, turn things over. And here's our pilot jet. This flows the fuel for the idle circuit and just off of idle. So just blow through that with carb cleaner, and yeah, and you should be able to look through it and see light through the jet. I don't know if we can get that in the picture or not, but at any rate, you should be able to get through there. Piece of wire. Use compressed air. Use a bit of carb cleaner if you need to. Again, a reminder: keep the carb cleaner away from anything with a rubber boot on it like that. Certain O-rings are all right with it, but if you don't want to risk it, don't spray your O-rings down with it either. This is the decelerator enrichment circuit on the side here. There is another rubber piece in here that we don't want to get any carb cleaner on, so go ahead and pull that aside. That spring, just let it fall down. It just sits in this cap like so. Again, so we're going to lift this off. That's how it sits. There's another jet inside of here, and that's is going to give fuel. When you decelerate the bike, that's so that it doesn't pop back through the exhaust when you're slowing down. So we want to make sure these jets are clean. I don't pull this apart any further. Make sure this thing moves in and out when you push on it. You can blast some carb cleaner through there. Make sure that's clean. The choke, you can remove the choke lever. Pull that out, take the choke apart. I know the choke circuit works, everything's clean. I'm probably not going to mess with that today. So basically, you want to blast through each of these passages, through here, through that one, through this guy, through here. It's just, this is where the fuel comes into the bowl. And you want to open the throttle valve. Make sure everything's clean inside. Blast carb cleaner and compressed air at all of these those passages and holes there. And just make sure that wherever you spray that comes out, there's another jet up in top of here. This is also a pilot circuit, but it just does air, not fuel in this one. So again, take it apart, clean it out with carb cleaner, blast everything with compressed air. When you get it all done, you can clean up the outside of the carb and just screw everything back together. Do one carburetor at a time so you don't get, if you get lost, you can check on the other one. And just as you put things back together, just one other thing to watch for is to make sure that you have this oriented the right way. It could be that way or that way, but there's a tab here, and those have to be together so that when you put it in, it lines up just like that, and then you know you have it right. Okay.